our Doctor of Ministry at Gordon-Conwell, it's a 3-year professional degree, 46 credits, part-time, ministry-friendly, remote, and residential. And what I love about this is exactly that aspect, that is not only ministry-friendly, it's tailored for ministers. This is not a degree for you to leave your ministry, go study, and then go back into ministry. What we want is to be a ministry practitioner and to be equipped to do ministry in your own ministry setting. It's cohort-based and is mentor-based also. It says customize and counsel. That means mentor-based, and that's why we have our mentors here tonight, because they are the ones who are going to guide you through the process. How does this work? Once a year for 2 weeks, you go and do your residency with your cohort, and then the rest of the year you work from your ministry setting, for your own context. Of course, you stay in touch with your mentors to continue advancing through the program. Sorry, I skipped the most important part. Let me introduce you to the team. You already met Dr. David Curry. He is the dean of the program. And his right hand, I would say, is Miss Yvette Garcia. She's here with us. Yvette, I don't know if you want to wave and say hi. She is the program manager and the registrar. That means that once you're admitted in the program, Yvette is your point of contact. So while you're applying to the program, you'll talk to me as the application manager or application representative. And I'm going to help you get into the program, hopefully. But once you are part of the Doctor of Ministry, really Yvette is your point of contact, and she's going to make sure that you have all the information, that you have access to your student account, that you know how to do payments, where to go to your residency. So she's amazing, and she's working really hard with all the different tracks and cohorts that we have, making sure that everybody has what they need to succeed in the program. And we also have Dorothy Guild. She hasn't been able to join us tonight, but she's the administrative assistant. So she works with Dave and with Dr. Curry and with Yvette to manage the program and make sure everything is done on a timely manner and communication is flowing. We have several tracks, and we're not going to go through all of these. This is just an idea for you to know that tonight we're focusing on the church planting and multiplication track, and this is such an important track, especially today, because the church needs to reach out to people, and the church needs to multiply. I personally, this is just my personal experience, I think is the time of just having a lot of people coming to one place is kind of waning out, and it's now time for the church to reach out to people all over the place and planting, establishing new churches and developing new leaders. But we have a lot of tracks, and the way, if you know someone else who's interested in the Doctor of Ministry but may not be interested in this particular track, you can always go to our webpage, and there's all the tracks available are listed there, also with the deadlines for application and when and where the tracks are going to take place. What do you need to be admitted? You need a Master of Divinity of 72 credits from an accredited institution. So this is very, very important, because although this is a professional program, it's also an academically accredited program. So you do have to have a theological master's degree. The idea is that you have a Master of Divinity of 72 credits, and those credits are spread out in 4 different areas: biblical studies, Christian thought, practical theology, and electives. However, we know that not everybody has been able to have that degree, so we allow for people to apply with a master's in theology and at least 60 credit hours. So if you have that, we do what is called a master's, an MDiv equivalency. We see where your degree is, what you're required, and then you can do an equivalency classes. So you can build up what you were lacking or what your degree was missing. And again, we're kind of rushing through this because all this information we will provide to you on a personal basis if you want to inquire, but this is just to give you a general idea. To apply to a Doctor of Ministry, I need to have an accredited master's degree in a theological field. That's the bottom line. So some people have an MBA, or they are, I don't know, degree in physics or whatever else. That's amazing, but to apply to the doctor of ministry, you need to have a theological master's. That's very, very important, and at least 60 credits. Ideally, the 72 credits Masters of Divinity. What is the application process? There's a QR there. If anybody wants to go directly to the web page, you can scan the QR and that's going to take you to the application page. But you need 3 references. And this is a pastoral reference, a professional reference, and a personal reference. You need to write 2 short essays, very, very short. This is your autobiography, just telling us about who you are, your ministry experience, your life story, and then your statement of purpose. And this is answering very basic questions about what you believe and why you want to do this program. A ministry endorsement. This is very unique to the doctor of ministry and very, very important, because this is, again, a professional degree that is going to be applied in your ministry setting. So we want to know that you are an active part of a ministry and that your ministry agrees with you pursuing this track. So a ministry endorsement is your ministry background saying, of course, a representative from that background, it can be a pastor, a supervisor, a leader, saying, hey, yes, we agree with this person pursuing the doctor of ministry to be applied in this ministry setting. We need official transcripts from your previous schools, and the application fee, which is $75. The tuition, the total cost of the program is $25,875. And that means $8,350 a year. So this is a one payment that you do every year prior to your residency. And then you have the student services fee, which is $275 for the doctor of ministry. This is cheaper than the other programs. The other programs pay about $350 for this same. Doctor of Ministry, it pays $275, and this is student services and technology fees. Of course, for your residencies, you're responsible to cover the costs of traveling, lodging, food, and everything else that takes place to go to your 2-week residency. So the cost that you see here is how much you pay to Gordon-Conwell for the program. But because this has a residential component of 2 weeks every year, you are responsible to take that into account. How you're going to get there, where you're going to stay, your food, if you need to rent a car, you're going to use Uber, how you want to do that, and also your books. And again, I'm rushing through this a little bit because this is information that you have or we can make available to you. And I want to use the biggest part of our time for you to hear from our mentors tonight. We have international students from many, many places coming to the Doctor of Ministry. However, this is very important because this program has a residential component. International students are required to apply and be granted an F1 visa. That's a student visa. And that's something that once you're admitted to the program, Yvette here, our registrar, can help you navigate that process. However, you need to understand that if you're an international student, the school cannot guarantee any kind of visa. That depends on the Department of State and the embassy on each one of the international countries. All we can do is provide you with the paperwork for you to apply. But the requirements are completely external and foreign to us. That has to do with government policies. So again, all we can do is help you and provide you the paperwork, but ultimately it's up to the embassy and the current policies to see if you're granted or you're not granted a visa. And if you're not granted a visa, regretfully, we cannot fully admit you to the program because of the residential component. You need to be physically with your cohort every year to be able to participate in our program. Well, you can follow us in social media. If you like social media, we would love for you to join us and stay connected with us. We have a Facebook page, we have a Instagram. You can follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and X. So this is a little bit about what the Doctor of Ministry is, how to enter, what we are about. And I'm going to stop my presentation here for a little bit and then pick it up at the end with a couple of surprises that I was telling you, but I want to give the time now. And I want to stop sharing my screen, and I want to give the time for our mentors to introduce themselves and also to present a little bit about the track. You're muted, Dr.
I was trying to be a good boy and mute myself. Hey, I'll go first in introducing myself. Between Tom and myself, we are both Reverend Doctor in that regard. However, in our DMin cohorts, we recognize that students who are admitted and matriculated are accomplished professionals yourselves. And so we go by Mike and Tom once we're in the cohort. So that's an important aspect to how we regard the students who are in this. We recognize the accomplishments and where you're at, and we want to help be part of the Holy Spirit's hyper speeding, where He's taking you next in your ministry influence. That is our highest aspiration here. So I'm in the north part of Charlotte, North Carolina, where I planted out of seminary in God's providence. I was apprenticed to a master church planter. I wasn't looking to be part of a church plant, but that's where I landed, and I caught it. And that church today is the largest Presbyterian church in America. It's multi-ethnic. It's a beautiful witness for Christ in Memphis, and that's where I learned about the entrepreneurial approach to ministry called church planting. I planted our church, Lake Forest Church, in 1998. We have since planted 9 daughter churches. A few of those were along with our original mother church. 5 of those, including the one that is launching, our next baby church launches 2 Sundays from this one, 20 miles east of here. And so I'm really excited about that. But so I am, unlike Tom, I'm not a serial church planter of multiple church plants. I'm a church founder that turned into a multiplying church. We're a church planting church that now the Holy Spirit has iterated us into a church planting network that is growing from 2x to 10x in our church planting ecosystem we have created, and planting rabbits and elephants, to use some new nomenclature in our experience. Along the way, I've coached church planters in multiple missional contexts. I've coached a self-described hip hop church planter, kind of lumber sexual type missional, beard wearing, flannel wearing church plant pastor, everything in between. I've coached church planters doing large launch. I've coached church planters doing house church, and the Lord seems to have particularly given our family of churches. We're now the Lake Forest family of churches. We seem to be adept at planting more churches than average, that the Holy Spirit grows to be very large. And so that's part of my experience set. I've also, our denomination, the Evangelical Presbyterian Church, 15 years ago, appointed me and a small handful of church planters to take us to reinvigorate our vision for church planting. And by God's grace, our denomination went from an anemic church planting rate to one that is a really robust growth church planting rate, and we're hoping to move toward momentum. So I'm also have experience in working in a national church planting network denominationally. That is more than enough about me and my church planting background. I'm just now co-founding with 3 other brothers in the Charlotte metro area, the Greater Charlotte Church Planting Network. We're finding that churches of all sizes and denominations are ready to come together in John 17 unity around the concept of gospel saturation through collaborative and encouragement toward one another to be church planting churches. And so most of the largest churches in the metro area and many of all sizes are coming together, and I have the joy of being a co-founder and the chair of the board of that Greater Charlotte Church Planting Network to encourage, again, in a John 17 spirit of unity, there to be more church planting churches in the metro area where God has placed us missionally. That's enough. Tom, tell us about your background in church planting.
Okay, so um, I kind of backed into church planting. I think it was an accident the first time I did it. We started a small group. I was the director of outreach ministries for my church, and it was in a Spanish-speaking neighborhood. And we were doing a lot of different outreaches, and decided let's start a Bible study. And so we did. And that little Bible study started with 7 people, and it grew into a pretty good-sized church, which then began to have daughter churches as well. So that was my first experience. That was actually in the 70s, if you can believe that. And there wasn't really even a word for church planting at that point, much less resources. I then planted my next church in the mid 90s, and um, again had a wonderful experience of people coming together, a dynamic church. So I was asked then to begin to put together a network and to begin to lead a church planting network. And so I found that there's a big difference between being a church planter and being a church planting leader. And so this network, as it came together, I'm excited about what Mike's doing in the Charlotte area, because it just brings back a lot of memories for me of what that was like, just getting a network started and spinning it up and figuring out, well, how do we saturate this whole area with church plants? And so that first network, I think we planted 16 or 18 churches. I led that group for about 6 years, I think, and then was asked to start another network. And so I did that. And so the second time around, we actually knew a little bit more about what we were doing. But I was doing that while I was planting my church, so that was the biggest challenge, I think. But what I learned was that uh, networks need systems, and that's really what we focused on, was putting together the systems to be able to plant multiple churches every single year. And so that's really what we focused on. Um, my denomination then asked me if I would be the national director for church planting for them. And so I did that. And my focus then was to try to put together those systems on a national basis, not just a regional basis. And so that's what we did. We focused on doing that. I realized that um, the most effective way for us to do that would be to start a 501(c)(3). So we did that as a nonprofit so that we could raise the funds that we needed and to make those systems for training, for assessing, for coaching, fundraising, all those systems available not just to my denomination, but to others as well. So,
Mm.
so I've worked at the national level, worked at the regional level, and I've been a church planter. So I've had lots of various experiences. Like Mike, I became a certified coach and a coach trainer, and have trained a lot of coaches for my denomination. I continue. I've retired now from parish ministry, but I'm still coaching part-time even in my retirement. And so I continue to work with church planters and with network leaders as well. Um, so that's my church planting background. I've done some teaching. I can thank Dave Curry for drawing me into that. I've taught church planting at the master's level, at the doctoral level, in 3 different seminaries, but most of my work has been with Gordon-Conwell, and I just find that this program and the way it's designed, it just fits what I think church planting leaders need to have. So I was able to design this track and have been teaching it since 2011. So this has been we've had a number of different cohorts go through. We've had people literally from all over the world. It's been a really fun time to see what they're doing and where they are and the kinds of projects that they're doing. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea of me, I guess. And what I'd like to do is just kind of focus now, maybe just turn this and just talk a little bit about our particular track and what it looks like and how we do it. As Jonathan said earlier, we're going to have residencies where all the students come together for a 2-week period, and we do that 3 years in a row in different locations. Our first residency is going to be in New York City. We're going to be working with Redeemer City to City Network. And then we're going to go the second residency to Long Beach, California. And the third residency will be either in Charlotte, the Charlotte area, working with Mike's network, or we may possibly go overseas to London. Um, what I think happens in this program that is so special is the thesis project. And what I love about it, and Jonathan alluded to this earlier, there's a way to customize this program for each of you, where you look and you say, what is the thing that is I most need to work on right now? You may have an idea, you may have a problem that you're facing, or a project that you need to do, or whatever. And your thesis project, which is at the heart of this program, is a way to take all of your studies and focus it on that project. And so whatever it is, you can make this program your own and make it something that's going to really help move your ministry forward. So that's a little bit about it. I'm gonna stop with the overview, and now I'm gonna give it back to Mike and ask him to drill down on some of the specifics about what we're gonna be doing. Mike?
Sure. Let me talk about two big ideas of this particular track and how we intend to tackle church planting itself. Big idea one is that we will absolutely do the reading in particular. We'll make sure that we do a deep dive into all aspects of church planting. Tom and I will lead us to have some presentations and vigorous discussions about the reading. So we're not going to, again, we're treating you as esteemed colleagues. So we will not be infantilizing you with lectures as though this is a undergrad course or a master's level class and you don't know anything about church planting. We will be doing the reading, and then we will all be engaging with a remarkable facility with all aspects of church planting. What does it take? But not only will this, of course, be about church planting a church, all the elements in that lead up to it, and healthiness beyond launch, etc. But we will at every moment be talking about how to accomplish those aspects of church planting while building a system of being a multiplying church, network, or denomination. And so we'll be, yes, so our goal, honestly, we as a cohort, including Tom and I, none of us will be the world leading expert on any of this, but our goal would be at the end of the 3 years, all of us in this cohort are the world's leading students of the state of church planting as the Holy Spirit is blessing and guiding it right now in our country and a bit around the world, and world's leading students of how to, Tom just used the word system, structure, into either, again, one church being a multiplying church. That's a fantastic model, including I have experience with multi-site and have worked with a lot of folks who plant that way. Whether it's through building a church planting network yourself or participating in one, or you become a denominational or other type of leader of a system. So church planting and multiplying systems. I mean, honestly, we all know that what's in the water today in every church planting, all church planting literature, conferences. I was at some of the pre-conference for Exponential back in March, for example, and honestly, the scrimmage line of the Holy Spirit is almost every church planter is thinking, "Oh, I'm planting pregnant." They're not thinking, many, influenced by what God's been doing in the global South in the last generation of disciple making movements. They're not thinking I'm planting a church. They're thinking I'm I'm planting pregnant. I'm planting a multiplying church, or I'm planting as a participant, collaborative participant in a larger movement or network. So that's big idea one, is we'll be um, going very deep into all the elements of a healthy church plant and how to systematize, structure that into a multiplying organismic um, network of church planting. A second big idea, a little different from that, is each of our residencies, again, we do not intend to go 2 weeks in New York City and watch a bunch of PowerPoints all day, every day. We're going to get out and have guest speakers, church plant visits, especially those that might exemplify what I just said, both uh, excellent and theologically reflective practitioners of church planting and taking it to the multiplication point. So, as Tom mentioned earlier, we will be convening some of our days on the Redeemer City to City campus. So we can be at the room where it happens. Kind of one of the OG North American church planting networks that's gone global, even as we talk about what's the fresh wind of the Spirit in our time for that. We will have a presentation from one of Dr. Keller's right hand persons when they went from being a family of churches of five and he broke down to me 4 key decisions that decision points, which he will share with this group, of how then the Lord turned them into a national and global network. We will also we'll have some presenters by distance on Zoom. The director of church planning for Holy Trinity Brompton, and if you know who they are, great. If you don't, I don't have too much time to explain, but that is an remarkable disciple making vibrant church in London. They're making disciples of post-Christian people. They're a really spirit-filled congregation. They're doing some innovative things and creating pipelines for church planters of all types. We will be hearing from their church planting director. Those are a couple of examples of the types of site visits, and presenters we'll have. Tom, do you want to talk about the overall track design?
Yeah, let me just give an idea of how this is being structured. I think what we're trying to do is we want to equip you to be the leader of leaders and the trainer of trainers. We want you to be able not just to plant churches, but to be able to create networks to plant churches and to really focus on multiplication. As Jonathan mentioned earlier, we're addressing church multiplication from a practitioner's point of view. And so what we're going to be doing is talking to practitioners, as Mike said. We're gonna accomplish this by focusing on 3 different facets of church multiplication: the church planter, the developmental process of starting a new church, and the participating in a church multiplication movement. So, Jonathan, if you could just advance that slide for us, those are the three areas, the 3 facets that we're going to be looking at. And what I'd like to do is just take a moment and talk very briefly about each one. So, in the next slide, church planter, we want the students to be able to evaluate the suitability and the readiness of potential church planters. Jonathan, if you could advance to the next slide, please. There we go. We want to equip you to find the catalytic leaders who are going to plant those churches and then to train and equip them. Uh, we want to discuss the disciplines that are going to be needed for spiritual health for each of our church planters. This is a big focus right now. And I think church planters in particular need to have those disciplines in place because of the stresses of startup ministry. And the last thing we're going to do is explore the theologies of leadership and discipleship for church planters. So those are the things that we're going to look at when it has to do with the church planter. The next facet will be the developmental process of starting a new community of faith. So we're gonna work on developing a missional theology that works in a transitional secular culture. So our focus is Western culture, and it's the culture in North America, but also hopefully if we can rope in the Holy Trinity Brompton folks, we can expand that a little bit to Western culture. We want to develop a church planting strategy that will take you from conception to reproduction, and for you to have a grasp of that strategy beginning to end. We want to teach you how to recruit, how to train, how to deploy effective church planting teams. And as Mike said, probably you are already in the midst of doing that, but maybe if we can help you to step back from that and say, well, how are we doing that? And how can we do it better? How can we improve what we're doing? So we're going to focus on that whole process. We want to develop effective strategies for evangelism and discipleship. And we want to learn how to create healthy patterns for growth, for development, and for reproduction. So that's the process of looking at a new faith community. The third facet then is participation in a church multiplication movement. And that's the bigger uh, picture that we're really wanting to focus on, because what we see in history and what we see from the scriptures is that this is the way that the Holy Spirit works, is to multiply. And so in many ways in the church planting world years ago, we were moving by addition, and now we figured out how to move from addition to multiplication, and how that creates an entire movement. We have not seen that in this country for quite some time, but it's happening in lots of places around the world. And so we're going to look at that. We want to be able to understand the theology and the history of church planting movements. We want to explore the biblical models, the historical movements, and the current trends that we see across the globe. We want to analyze the interrelationship between cultural exegesis, apologetics, ecclesiology, and mission, because that's one reason why we want to go to these various places that we're going to be meeting in, so that we can see how church planting is done in a variety of settings. Um, we want to be able to evaluate regional and national church planting strategies. And what does that look like? How can that lead to a church planting movement? And in the midst of all that, we'll have some special issues that we'll look at, such as multicultural church planting, um, planting versus redevelopment. That's a big question that comes up. I hear that a lot. And then the analysis of various models. Okay, so that gives you the big picture of the three facets. Now let's kind of drill down a little bit, and let's talk about the topics that we're going to have. What Mike and I have decided to do is to focus this track on the 7 topics you see on your screen, and for every residency, we're going to be focusing on all 7 of these. Uh, they are the biblical, theological, and historical foundations for church planting, the developmental phases of new churches, the models of church planting, leadership dynamics, network theory for church multiplication, 7 components of a church multiplication network. If you are a part of one, what are the components you need for it to be successful? And then the church multiplication movement. So those are the things we feel are the most important things for us to focus our time on. The next thing I want to talk about just briefly is the educational methodology that we're going to use. One thing that we've realized in doing this is that, we all learn differently, and especially as we get older, our adult learning models are very different than teaching younger children. So we want to capitalize on that and employ a variety of educational methods. Mike alluded to this earlier. So we're going to be using presentations by church planters in the field. We're going to have a lot of class discussions focusing on our readings. We're going to use a lot of online church planting resources. It's amazing to me how many resources are available now. When I planted my first church, there were none, 0. And now we have a plethora. So we're going to be looking at a lot of those, and how can you tap into those in the work that you're going to do. We're going to do a lot of problem solving, and we're going to be talking about church planting scenarios and how do you overcome some of the obstacles that you're going to face. We'll do a lot of individual and small group assignments. That's one of the beauties of the cohort model, that you can team up and we can send you out and do some community analysis, and we can do a lot of different things together as groups. And then the last thing is just using action reflection and interactive models. So this gives you an idea of what we'll be doing and how we're going to do it. But now I want to turn our attention to a question that each of us needs to ask ourselves, which is, and I'm going to address this question to Mike, why should we pursue a Doctor of Ministry degree?
Hmm. A DMin is not for every pastor, so it isn't. But for those for whom it's for, um, it is a powerful way of the Lord doing what is a theme verse of mine, handed on by a mentor of mine, Leighton Ford. Isaiah, oh, I didn't relook it up ahead of time. I believe it's 49:2. Isaiah says, the Lord has polished me into a sharpened arrow. The Lord, you men and women are already doing potent ministry. I've talked to a couple of you. You're doing powerful things, and yet those who enter a DMin are aware. I'm still in some penultimate phase of my ministry. There remains some ultimacy, other things that the Lord has for me, and I want shaping and polishing in a rigorous, disciplined sort of fashion over a long period of time. So for me, I think that was the sense of why I pursued the DMin while I was planting our church. I did it pretty young. Um, uh, I realized if you're on this Zoom, you're already a learner. You're a lifelong learner. You're reading. You probably try to increase your book account with your church every year as much as you can. And a DMin is a way to just grab a lot of the reading and learning and conferences and stuff and just align it in one powerful direction that happens to be a direction the Lord is already shooting you as an arrow toward a target. And in this case, church planting. And this is a way to, again, powerfully align your reading. In a cohort, you're powerfully aligning with some peers who are also talked to a couple of you. I know you all are accomplished folks. There's some really cutting edge ministry going on with some of you candidates here. And so the Lord is shoning and harpening us into a polished arrow, even that. And then when it comes down to selecting the thesis or the dissertation or the DMin project, for some of you, this may be the discipline that you need to start moving towards something that you hope to publish, that you already know. This is like the unique brilliance the Lord has given to me and our church, and it needs to get out to the larger church. Because doctors of the church are those who are not only useful in the Lord's hand in their own congregation, but generally they tend to be pastors who the Lord uses to mentor and influence others in ministry in their day. And so so this is how the Lord used it for me in my doctoral focus on the missiological leadership of St. Patrick, which included like this Holy Spirit innovative leap of a new method of multiplying churches to Patrick's situation in pre-Christian Celtic Ireland. Just shot me ahead in my missiological vision for what our church could be. So, Tom, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Why would you say, how would someone know if DMin is the right thing for them?
Well, Mike, I think the things that I think about have to do very similar to what you said. How do I integrate all the things that I've been learning? As a lifelong learner myself, I'm reading all the time. I'm going to conferences. I'm talking to leaders. But how do you bring that all together and integrate it in a way that really helps your ministry to move forward? And so when I was making the decision about doing a Doctor of Ministry degree, that was the deciding factor. That was the thing that helped me because I realized I needed a way to draw all this together and help me to focus it. So that would be the first thing. Second thing I would say is that I think all of us have something in our heart, in the back of our mind that we would really love to do, but it's a big project. And we're in ministry, we don't have a lot of time. Um, we may not have the resources. How do we bring that from the background to the foreground? How do we take that desire that God's put in our heart to do and actually make it a focus of our ministry? And the Doctor of Ministry allows you to do that. As Jonathan said at the top of our webinar, this program is really you can customize this to whatever it is that you're working on. And your thesis project is very unique. I've had students, just to give you a few ideas, some of my students in the past, I had one guy who was trying to figure out how to recruit church planters in Latin America. Okay, he lived in Mexico. He was working all through South America, and he did a thesis project on how he could use social media to recruit church planters, and it was tremendously successful. Had another guy who wanted to figure out how to do an outreach project in New England. He'd been thinking about it for a long time. He made that his project. Another guy, an Australian student, who was focused a lot on discipleship, and he wanted to put together a whole curriculum that church planters could use to disciple new believers. And it was a massive project, but he put together this beautiful curriculum that he was able to use and make available to other church planters. And the most recent one was a student of mine who wanted to figure out, he was concerned, as all of us are, how do we find church planters? How do we raise up church planters? How do we create a leadership pipeline? And for most of us, we're thinking about, maybe college students. And this guy was saying, no, we have to start earlier. So how do I identify kids who are in middle school and high school that are potential church planters? And that was his project. And he did an incredible job. He does these summer camps where he invites these kids from the community. They come in and they're entrepreneurial camps. And then over the course of the time that they're in the camps, then he helps them design projects and carry out the projects. And so he can see which of these kids has the skills, has the aptitude for it. So those are just some of the things. And I think that if you've got something like that you've been thinking about and you just haven't had time to develop it, this is a great opportunity because your church, your network is going to allow you the time. There's something about getting into a degree program like this where they recognize we need to offload some of your responsibilities to give you the time and the space to be able to work on stuff. And so you'll be able to finish this project that you've been thinking about and develop it. So those are some
And
of the things that I
yeah.
I think really
And
help.
Tom, so I didn't know what my project would be until 2.5 years into it.
Yeah.
I just knew there was not a church planning DMin at the time, and so I did evangelistic leadership,
Yeah.
which describes why I'm in church planning, functionally, honestly. And then it took me a while. On the other hand, I graduated my MDiv at a different seminary, and at my graduation, the graduation speaker was graduating with his DMin. It was Rick Warren, and his DMin was titled The Purpose Driven Church. One of the most influential works on the church of the previous generation. He knew from day one. He wanted the rigor. He wanted, right. He didn't want this to be a facile work and non-theologically rigorous. And so he submitted to the DMin process, even though he knew he had a message for the church around the world. And so we'll look forward to those of you who are in the cohort to seeing, all right, what do you already know you're working on? Or, how do you want to find that out? We should stop and have a little time for questions here.
Mhm.
If you can please join me and give a hand to our mentors and thank them for their time. And also, thank you all for participating in this webinar and being here with us. It's being recorded, so if you think of someone else that may profit from this experience, we are going to send you the link so you can share it with others. We're on the top of the hour, so we want to be respectful of your time again, and thank you so much. So we mentioned we had a couple of surprises, but for that, I'm going to pause the recording of the session. And again, we want to thank you all for being here, and thank you for the mentors for giving their time and explaining us a little more about the track. If you don't mind, I just want to share super quick a personal experience. I am a church planter in South America. I've been a missionary there for 13 years, and we planted a church. And I took one class with Dr. Moses, and it was really transformational for me and for my ministry in Bolivia. I am now in the US. My season as a missionary has come to an end, but I'm thinking one class really was transformational to me. I can't only imagine what's going to be to have 3 years with these two amazing mentors and talking to each other as peers and see what's going to come out of this track. So I'm really passionate and really excited about this track. And I want to thank you guys, for everybody that is here, for taking the call to be church planters and to do it together in this really unique and amazing learning opportunity.